Welcome to Lift Up Nations. I'm Robb Leech, and today's episode is Janelle Hoyland's testimony. Hello, Janelle. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, so people get to know you before we start your testimony.
Right, so I'm in Houston, Texas, or close to Houston, Texas, on the coast. I was born in Missouri, which is quite an interesting story. But I've lived in Texas my whole entire life. I literally call it the heart of the U.S. in that way,
Yep.
because it's just such a heart opening space when you come here.
Yeah, I've never been to Houston, but I'd like to visit at some point in time. I hear a lot of good things about it.
Yes, very much so.
So let's get into your testimony. I know you actually believe in Jesus your whole life, so start at the beginning and go tell your story. If I have any
Yeah.
questions, I'll go through and ask, and then just it's all you. Open floor.
Well, it's an amazing journey because in our conversation earlier, I was telling you that there's not a point where I don't have the connection, or I didn't have the connection with Jesus in my heart.
Mhm.
Um, Literally from day one, I remember looking at the world and feeling the world in a very different way. And you know, um, when I was growing up, I had two parents that really honestly had fights, horrible fights. And I was always the voice of reason, even as a child, for them. And um, when I was when I was three, actually, my father ended up taking me from my mom and kidnapped myself and my sister and took us on the run. And it was in that time that I began to hear Jesus' voice guide me at three. And he said to me, everything's going to be fine. And, not having parents that were religious in that way, not really, but I knew who it was that was telling me everything was going to be fine. I knew it. I felt it in my heart. I felt that love come over me and protect me as a child. And that circumstance and that knowing became literally my safety net for my whole entire life. It literally was the a love. It wasn't a love that I didn't understand. It was love that I knew, but I didn't have from my parents, or I didn't have, I didn't have that kind of safety kind of upbringing that way. And as I got older and, I was returned to my mom, no harm happened to me. I was protected. It wasn't that kind of situation. And um, my my mom and my dad, they had their own thing going on with separate families, what have you. But my mom asked me probably when I was, I guess, high school. She asked me. She said, "Why do you do things differently? Why do you? It seems like you have your own path that you follow." And I've always had my own moral compass, right and wrong, from Jesus himself. Don't do this, don't, that, but because my parents didn't give me that, my parents didn't give me that, that journey. And it became my faith, and literally my guidepost, like I said, for everything that I chose to do, everything that I felt, and the deep love that I have for life itself and people, and uh, the faith in the way that the body can heal, and how we can move more intimately with Jesus in our body. And um, my mom asked me probably when I graduated from high school, she said, well, where are you going? And I said, I don't know. I'm going to be, I'm going to be led there, and I didn't talk about necessarily, overwhelmingly Jesus to my parents because they weren't in that space. I would just say, I'm being led to my right place. And every time I felt an impasse or I felt lost in any way on my path or on my journey into, getting married and having kids and, all of those things, it would always come back to, Jesus, what do you want me to do? What is the right decision here? It was never me thinking my way through it. It was always that. And I have such a deep, like I said, intimate relationship with that love and safety. And I never feel alone. I don't, ever struggle in that way. And when I became pregnant with my son, I didn't have contact with my dad for a really long time because he was in and out of prison. He was, living his life the way he wanted to live his life. And I heard, Jesus say, okay, it's time for you to forgive him. And I don't ever hesitate. I don't ever question. I usually run as fast as I can towards the direction that he's wanting me to go. And I went and forgave him, and he was still his usual self. But 2 weeks after that day that I forgave him, he had an accident and went into a coma. And pregnant with my son, I was, Jesus asked me to go pray over him every day. And so I did. And one day I took off. He was in the hospital for 2 weeks or so. I think it was probably 2.5 weeks. But the doctor called me in the middle of this journey. He said, he's not going to make it. He's, we don't have any hope for him. He's, his age and the injuries and all these things. And I said, okay, that's fine. I accept whatever is. And towards the end, when he literally woke up, pulled out his tubes, and was begging the doctor to call me. And when I got there, he was still sort of in and out of consciousness. And he said, I had a conversation with Jesus, and he said that the reason why he was giving me a second chance at life was because you forgave me that day. And I came back to make everything right. And that's one of those full circle events that Jesus makes right in our lives. And if I hadn't listened in that moment and I still held on to, I didn't have any unforgiveness for him, but if I didn't speak those words to him, he would not have made that choice to listen in that moment. And to this day, he is a completely different person. He found Jesus in that through me. And that alone, that one piece alone, there's like probably 50 of those moments, or I can't even count how many moments of those. But we often struggle with forgiveness, especially when people, that would be natural for me to have that feeling, of unforgiveness with him. But I never had any anger towards him or any of those things growing up. I knew that he had been struggling. I knew how he had been raised. And literally to this day, we have a great relationship. He texts me every morning, sends me a cute little meme or something. And then every night he'll send me a good morning, a good night text. And this is a man who was never connected to Jesus in that way and never understood the deep love and the thing that he told me literally last week, because he's 78 and he's approaching his return, and he said to me, you were never, this is a profound statement that I know came from Jesus. He said, You were never mine. You were never your mom's. You were always God's. You were always his. And everything that you do and everything that you say comes from him. And you can never stop. And that was the himself to give to me in return, was to witness that in me. So that's one of the stories. So there's many more, but I find that even for people that walk in faith, when you're faced with those moments of where Jesus is asking you to do something that's outside of your comfort zone, where you would be in fear or anger or whatever the thing is, if you can have faith in that, not knowing where it's going, but to truly listen to where he's guiding you to go, those are the moments that change our world and the fabric of our relationships. That's deep faith. I can't hear you. No, I can't hear you. I'm like, I'm reading your lips. I can't hear you. Okay. Okay. Um, so one of the things that I think a lot of people get confused about, at least from my window in, because I've had a lot of people from, different pastors, different, deacons of churches ask me and explain that my level of faith and my devotion to what I'm being asked to do is something that they themselves don't have. And it's, my understanding that this whole journey of our lives is meant to build that intimate relationship with Jesus himself, not as a concept outside of us, but as a deep intimate relationship with inside of us, instead of, you know outside of, oh, yes, prayer and all of those things, but it's building that deep trust and that bond with him in the way that you feel him. You feel his love, you feel his devotion, and you begin to move that way in your life, and to begin to hear him guide you in your life is a very rare thing, I find in my experience. I know that a lot of uh, part of my testimony for people is that following Jesus in that way is not meaning tolerating poor behavior from people also. And I think there's a little bit of a misconception with that too. It's not that I tolerated my dad's poor behavior in my life, but um when the timing was right and I was asked to forgive, that is when I moved in. I didn't tolerate his poor behavior or his reckless decisions in my life growing up, nor my mom's either. Um, and when you have a calling on your life from him, uh, and he's asking you to do something that's outside your comfort zone, that's when true tests of faith and devotion come in. And can you be a willing, it's participant, and follow his lead to where leading you, because you don't know if you're hesitating in those moments where he's asking you to, and you feel that calling, not from it doesn't come from the mind, it comes from inside, inside, and you feel that. Those are the moments that you have to take, because you don't know where they're going, and it's not up to you to figure out where it's going or why he's leading you down that path. Why would he ask you to do that? That's not what you need to do. It's the ask when he says to you, please forgive that person, or you feel that. Those are those moments that, that took a long time of my life, that, to make that journey happen. Um, and if I had missed one step, would it have not turned out that way? Not necessarily, but I, through my dad saying that to me as he's beginning his journey to go meet Jesus, I am in extreme love and gratitude for the amount of love and support that I got to experience as a child in that circumstance, and then growing up into deep forgiveness for that. And my son who's 13 now, gets to witness that, and he gets to have a whole different experience with Jesus, and one that my parents didn't give me. So it's the cause and effect, the being the beacon of his love in life, to the point of uh you know I faced a lot of adversity and controversy in my own family for making that decision to do that. And are you willing to do what's asked of you, and follow his light and follow his love, and go into that space where it might be uncomfortable, it might be out of the norm, it might not be something that you would normally choose to do, but he has a reason for everything that he does, because one point always leads to another point, and it's not up to us to figure out. Sorry. It kicked me out again. There's also, uh, this is about my son too. When I was pregnant with my son, um, I was I had a really hard time carrying him. And I was on bed rest the whole time. And I was having a really hard time one weekend, and I to the doctor. We went in, and she said, "Okay, well, I'm going to have to take your son." And I said, "I I absolutely heard Jesus telling me he's not ready. He's not ready." And I said, "He's not ready. I'm not going to do that." And she said, "Well, I'm the doctor. I know what's best." The whole story. And I literally told her, I said, "You're not taking him. He's not ready. He's not ready to be here." And so she left me alone, kind of argued with me a little bit. And I said, "I'm just going to wait the weekend and wait for my doctor to get here. And then we'll see what transpires." And I knew my body could do it because our body's amazing, because that's how Jesus made us. But I made it through the weekend, or it was probably, I think it was actually Sunday. It was Sunday. And this woman walks in, she's the cleaning lady. And I saw this amazing love with her. And she began to pray over me. And I asked her, I said, what made you do that?" And she said, "I felt you needed protection." And I felt, they had me on some heavy duty medication to protect, my body and that kind of thing. But I felt Jesus in that moment come through her to deliver me protection and my son protection. And Monday in the morning, when my doctor came in, she said, "Absolutely, hands down, you made the right decision." And I said, "No, I didn't make the right decision. Jesus made the right decision, because he would have died if I didn't listen in that moment and protect him." And this is the same child that I was pregnant with when I was going through the thing with my father. And he's now a happy, thriving 13-year-old who wouldn't have been here. And it was the doctor who, in the beginning of the journey, she literally said to me, and I'll never forget this moment. She said that most people just do whatever she says because she's the doctor. And she said she works with underprivileged families and low income families. And I said to her, because this is what Jesus was telling me to tell her, is that you don't get to play God because they're uneducated or they don't have any money. And in that moment, me saying that to her was literally Jesus telling her, like, what you're doing isn't right. I'm bringing children into the world. Because you're a doctor, you get to make no, that's not how it works. But that moment too, coming full circle in the middle of dealing with, my father and going through that, like, it's been this amazing testimony for what he's doing in the world and what he's doing in us. And there's been quite a few moments where I've had to stand in that truth of what is right and what is wrong morally, as an inner compass that, it is what it is, And I'm grateful. I'm entirely grateful that I get to experience him that way in the world. Like that, there's never a second in the day where I'm not grateful for that. In life itself, that he gives us life and he gives us breath and he allows us to feel him that way. Entirely grateful. I wouldn't change it. Hold on. Let me see. I'm going to try to hit the chat if I can, if it doesn't kick me out. That's what's happening. When I hit the chat, it kicks me out. Yeah. Yeah, hold on. Okay. So I would like to also share and do a prayer over your listeners to help them get to this place of understanding and an intimate relationship with Jesus, because that's what he's wanting. This is what he's calling for, to change our society and the things that we're facing right now and all the adversities that are happening in the world. It's because we've lost our intimate relationship with him. In here, not as a concept outside of us, but an intimate relationship with him in us, so that he can guide us to make the right decisions in life and have him lead us towards where he's wanting us to go. So I'd like to do a prayer and help people build that relationship with him in that way, and have that deep devotion and trust, and have leaps of faith with him that don't occur in their everyday lives. So I'm going to begin to do that now. So, God, Heavenly Father, Jesus that walks beside us, in us, through us, I'm asking that you come into each and every person, into their lives, into their families, into their work, into their conversations, into their mind, to quiet their mind so that they can begin to feel you, to know you in this intimate way, that you can begin to guide them in their lives, to make their lives easier and more impactful in the world. We know that you have placed this calling on each and every person to build this deep devotion and have this love with you. So profound and so wildly free. So much love and just profound intimacy with you in a way that is uncomparable to anything that we know. I'm asking that you go in and you touch the people that are struggling right now with their faith, with their devotion with you, because they don't feel you in their lives. I'm asking that you open up their hearts and break them free of chains and any kind of limitations that might have been binding them in their lives, where there's been confusion and doubt of who has them and who has been guiding them the whole time. Any place of darkness that they might be struggling with and have felt like the society is lost, I want you to allow them to see you in society, to find you in those places where they think that you're not there, because you always have been. I'm asking that you spark those dreams in people that you have placed inside their hearts, so that they can go conquer those dreams that they've always had. And so that each and every person can rise up and stand in your leadership of us, knowing that you have touched every blade of grass, that you have built every single body as perfect and whole and complete alongside with you, inside and out. And I'm asking you to build that faith again in you, in only the way that you can, and begin to allow people and families to be restored in wholeness and health. And go inspire those who want to make a difference in this world, and be bold about it, as you are bold with your love for us. Amen.
Amen. And that brings me to my announcements. If you'd like to come on my show or tell a testimony, or have a live baptism at Lewis Beach in Lewis, Delaware, you can reach out to me at 302-313-6190, or email us at liftupnations@gmail.com. Again, thank you, and God bless.